Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today, I have two special ladies in the house. These two ladies have a heart of gold. They are women of God. They love to serve, and they have taken time out of their schedules to join us on the podcast this morning to just share a little bit of their journey of life and dealing with adversity and how they managed to overcome it all. So, without any further delay, allow me to introduce to you Miss Victoria Neal and Miss Tamla Bartlett. Thank you so much for being with me today. It's a pleasure having
Mm,
you, ladies. How are you
Thanks for
doing?
having Good, good.
All
Thanks for
right.
having
All right, all right. So before we jump in to the heart of it, nuts and bolts of our show, I want to give you each of you an opportunity to just tell the audience a little bit about yourself. So I'll jump to you, Tamla, first. Just kind of tell us a little bit about who Tamla is and what she's all about.
Okay. Well, I am Tamala Bartlett, and I'm a mom of two grown sons. Um, I do a lot of consulting work as far as profession goes, but I'm also a deacon of my church, and I love the Lord, and I love sharing knowledge and anything related to encouraging someone. I'm originally from Chicago, but I have been here in Plano for about 13 years, a little over 13 years now. So I think I'm going to stay. And that's pretty much about me. I'm a very free flowing person, and I try to get along with everyone. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, awesome. And Victoria, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning. I am actually a fourth generation Planoite. My family is from Plano. Grew up in Plano schools. Came back to teach and become a counselor in Plano ISD. I am the mother of one kind of grown son. He grown. He's 23, but he's still my baby. One son, and I absolutely I tell people all the time that the reason I'm in education, it's a calling. It's not something that I would have chosen to do. I believe that this is exactly where God intended for me to be. So I have truly enjoyed my career. And I too, I mean, I love the Lord. I know that nothing that I have done or can ever do can be done without Him. So I am happy to be here this morning.
Awesome, awesome. And for those who are watching that are not from the area, when the lady said that they're in Plano, they mean Plano, Texas. So yeah, we got Texas in the building today, and of course we got Tamla by way of Chicago. So of course I identify with you from that, 'cause being from Chicago myself. So, all right. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. So, as with any journey in life that we go through, of course, there's always to bring context to it all, to bring a full circle understanding of it all. It's important that we tap back into where it all begins, and so that's what we're going to do this morning. So, Tamla, I want to start with you. Tell us, what was it like for you growing up? When you reflect back on your childhood, what was that experience like for you? Fond memories, as well as if there was any particular challenges that you faced in growing up. Please share that experience with us.
Sure. So, growing up with a household of four sisters was that probably a challenge in itself. But no, but my childhood was really it wasn't bad. It was a good childhood. And not knowing certain things is going on as a child sometimes is really good because um, my parents ended up separating and divorcing eventually when I was 14, and so I went from a huge house to a two-bedroom apartment and just not even knowing. So that means that everything that I was used to, I was sort of uprooted for it. But it was a good thing because we moved into an area where I went to school with kids I wasn't used to going to school with, so sort of underprivileged. But it taught me so much humility, and it taught me how to be humble. And I really think that's what the start of just the love of people came from me. Because although they were different from me, that didn't mean anything to me, and I learned so much from them. And I actually learned about the church from them because my mother was a Jehovah's Witness when I was younger. So going into the school, I started. We used to have, I say every other week, some type of show in the auditorium. It was always something, and they were always, we had a choir, and they were always singing songs and that sort of thing. So it really taught me a different side of connectiveness, because I was very close knit with my family, with my mom and dad, with my sisters. But this allowed me to expand to others, and and I think that I was able to just adapt and fit right in. I really didn't have any huge challenges. I learned some big things about myself that I was and this is definitely not to brag, but I was smarter than I thought I was. I was able to excel in a lot of my classes and that sort of thing. But I think it came from just the love of the school and the love of the teachers there, that supported us and took time with us and taught us, that allowed me to do that. So overall, childhood was pretty good. Again, too young to know the things that was going back and forth with my mom and dad, but it never skipped a beat. My mother did have to take over being the breadwinner of the house, but she never skipped a beat of supplying our needs and making sure we was taken care of. And her saying goes, you can never know that you don't come from a two-parent household, because she made sure, and I think she instilled that in her girls as just mothers and just caretakers, is that don't shy away from the responsibility that you are given when it comes to your kids. So I don't know if that was too much, but that
No,
so
not at all, not at all. That's I appreciate the transparency in that. I do have a follow up question. Being a father, particularly being a father of a daughter, I'm always curious to know. In your particular case, you said you had a really close bond with family, and for your parents to separate and eventually divorce at the age of 14. How did it impact you in terms of your relationship with your dad? Not having dad around, how did that work
Oh,
out?
I am definitely a daddy's girl. So it really didn't impact. And I don't know if I was just being naive, but I could see no wrong that my daddy did. So um, at the time, but it really didn't, because I think I was old enough to know that whatever he did, it was, him and my mom had to settle on what they did, but I was also old enough to know that he was at fault on a lot of things as well. And I don't know, I always had a forgiving heart, and I just, was just forgiving, and we maintained our relationship. Even to this day, I take care of my daddy. So I think I'm just a daddy's girl. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's great to hear because, again, the stories is not always the same for ladies who, lose their dads, whether it's through passing or through a divorce type of
mhm.
situation. So to hear that you were still able to maintain that connection is great, in
Yeah,
spite of your parents' marriage in itself not working out. So that's
yeah,
awesome to hear.
yeah.
Victoria, same
Yes.
question for you. Tell us what it was like, Plano girl, growing up. What was that experience like for you? Fond memories, as well as if there were any challenges along the way. Please share that with us as well.
So my family, as I said, my family is from here, and um, so many fond memories. My grandmother lived on, like, I can say the streets, people probably won't know, but, like, you have A, B, C, D. So my one grandmother lived on F Avenue. My great grandmother lived on I Avenue, and the school campus was right in the middle. So we would, walk the streets and go from house to house all the time. Um, we literally, once we moved out off Parker Road, which is maybe a mile, couple of miles away. My brother and I used to ride our bikes over on the weekends back to the old neighborhood and just hang out with cousins. So it was, it was for me, I had a great childhood in that, um, just being around family. That was always really important. When I was 5, my mom sent me to live with my grandmother in East Texas because she too at that time was a single mom, and didn't want me like waiting on the bus stop by myself to go to school. And so she sent me to live with my grandmother. So I started kindergarten and I think first grade, with my grandmother in Edgewood, Texas. Um, and then she was determined to have me, and my little sister. She had just had my little sister. She was determined to have us together, and got her situation together. Brought me home. Um, I started school, and I remember distinctly, as Tamala said, I was always being smart. I didn't know I was smart. I just, I just did what I did. And I remember changing classes one day. The teacher was like, "You have to go to class, math class down the hall," and like sent me down this hall, and I was like, "Okay." And what I didn't realize is that they were putting me in the advanced math class. They didn't tell me. They just told me I had to go to class down there. And then when we moved off Parker Road, that's where the rest of my childhood, third grade on, is where we lived, and just lots of fond memories. Um, my parents divorced when I was a sophomore, I believe, in college, and my mom jokes and said, that she had to wait until she because she was like, no, you would be the one talking about I can't come from a broken home. And I was like, Mama, this has been broke for a while. Because my dad has children outside of the marriage, and so but she joked about that, like, um, that she waited for me to be gone before she got divorced. But other than that, yeah, great memories, growing up, and just knowing that, like my great grandfather went to the Methodist church. My great grandmother went to the, Baptist church, and they're literally just right down the street from each other. And so we would go to the Methodist church with my dad and, my great grandfather. And then when I was a teenager, all my friends went to the Baptist church, so I wanted to go to the Baptist church. Um, and so just, over the course of time, I ended up where I am, but, found a church in college. So just, yeah, good childhood. Just, the main challenges of childhood, I think, were, Plano used to be so small. And so everybody hung out together. Like, I went to school with Joe Duncan, and his parents owned, um, the South Fork, what is now South Fork.
Hmm.
Mm.
And he was just Joe, you know. And
Mhm.
so just, those kind of spirits. And we still have really good relationships. I still have really good relationships with the lots of people that I went to high school with. So childhood was
Wow.
good, other than
Oh,
that time frame when I was away from my mama.
okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And for those who may be tuning in the episode that are not from the area, if you're anywhere in our age bracket, you understand that South Fork is where they used to film the Dallas, where the house used to
Mhm.
be on the TV show Dallas.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so intriguing when we first moved over, to Murphy, and realized it was right down the
Hmm.
street from them. I was like, oh, okay, make that connection. It's like, wow, all the
Right.
years as a kid watching that, and I think you live right down the street
Right
from it,
down the
and to see
street.
people parking in front of it, taking pictures and things like that. So just
Hmm.
that's pretty cool. So all right, all right. Well, thank you both for sharing that. Well, now we get to the point of the discussion here where I'm interested in knowing, again, as we're trailing through this journey, we've obviously discussed your childhood, and you start getting into adulthood, and things start to become a little bit more real, a little bit more,
Mhm.
challenging. And so you live long enough. One of the things that you learn is that there's going to come a point where you're going to get hit with some type of adversity, some type of situation that just feels different than some of the regular things that we deal with on perhaps on a day-to-day basis. So what I'd like to find out from each of you is, to tell us about a time when you were in such a situation that it was so heavy for you in terms of burden, in terms of weight, in terms of pressure, that you actually were thinking, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. This is a bit much. This is a bit overwhelming. I don't know if I'm gonna ever recover from this. What was that experience like for you, and how did you actually navigate your way through it? And I'll start back with you, Tamala. What was that experience for you?
Okay. Well, one experience in particular. Okay, so I was a teenage mom. So I had my oldest son at 18, and of course, at 18, I was 3 months pregnant when I graduated from high school. But because I was a scholar, I was really ashamed in a way, because I'm like, I'm supposed to go on to, college and, do all of this, big stuff. And, so that right there was a challenge for me, but I kept on going. I kept on going. And let me tell you something. God will place some people in your life that you don't know why they're there. And then in retrospect, that he did that to bless you. So I went to a business high school in Chicago, Jones Commercial, and so we had to work our senior year for. We had to get a total of 585 hours of working hours in order to graduate. So we was in the downtown, the center of downtown. So you had the companies that would hire us on to work part time. So I had an opportunity to work with a guy named George Kennison, Mr. Kennison, and he was a Christian man in small business. He was in computerized temperature control. So by profession, he was a mechanical engineer. But the way that he ran his business was it was so God led. It was amazing. And not even that, the way he led his business, he also, the way that he treated the employees. He treated us like family, and everything was through a Christian way of doing things. So, with me being expecting, and he like, well, don't, we just gonna have to get through this, And that was the time when that father figure stepped in.
Hmm.
And so he is the one that he took me to Chicago State University. He bought all my books. He made sure I registered, and I'm out here. So, and so at that time, so that really helped boost my confidence. So, and I say that to go in to say that with having my son at a young age, of course, the dad, we both was young, so we weren't even mature enough to even talk about having a kid. But one of the challenging things that I just thought I was not going to get over with was my oldest son's father was killed in a drive-by when he was 10 years old. And the hardest thing for me was tell my son that his dad had died. And I
I think, Tamala, you're having a little technical difficulty. We'll work through that and get back to your, make sure we capture whatever we didn't hear on your part of the story. While she's fixing her
in the back of
situation.
my head is like,
Okay.
oh, the way that he
I'm sorry, Tamala. I just was you had paused momentarily in the middle. I don't want to miss. I didn't want to miss your part. Remember
oh
we talked about earlier. Sometimes we had these glitches that we
yes,
can't
yes.
control because you were about to say something powerful, but it's okay.
Oh,
We working through this. So you had said
okay,
about
no
his.
worries.
You had gotten to the point where you talked about you finding out your son's dad was killed in a drive-by shooting, and the difficult part of sharing that. So let's pick up from there for us.
Okay, so the hard thing was sharing it with my son. So I did, let him know, and we was definitely devastated by the news. But my main concern, just as a mother, was how would this affect my child? How would this impact him? Would he? Because he's a scholar. So will he now act out? And then do I have the strength and the ability to kind of make sure that it doesn't get there, and how can I handle it? And I just remember, and this was before I was even saved, because like I said, my mother was a Jehovah's Witness, so we had scripture instilled in us. We had the Word of God instilled in us, and I just remember just going to the Word of God and just praying, Lord, like help me, and that was a humbling experience for me, because I didn't even know what type of help. I just I always knew to call on the Lord when in your time of needs. And I didn't even know how to pray. I didn't even know what to say. And I'm just like, help me, Lord. I don't know what to do. I don't know which way he may go. He may end up doing, whatever. And so that was a very challenging time for me. Needless to say, he did excel in school and do, things that, he should have done. He went on to be. He was one of the participants at the youth ball for President Obama, because he was a part of the Congressional Youth Leadership Conference. So he was a part of, Excel. He went to St. Joe's High School, all advanced classes and UH. But here's the challenge. I was so concerned during that time, but my challenge as a mother now is to step back from this son, because he's a grown
Hmm.
man now. And sometimes I see hiccups and I want to go in there and I want to, but then, he gave me that, like, and that's the challenge. The challenge is
Hmm.
now that, when do you say something and when do you just kind of hold back? So I hope I didn't get off of track here, but that was one of the challenges. One is, I think, is telling him his dad died, worrying whether or not, he how this would affect him, and then worrying and not how would I be able to handle it, and then just, seeing God, that He was able to see me through it all, and still
Awesome.
see me through it, because I still struggle. So
Oh yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I appreciate the transparency in that story, and again, you're not alone in that challenge of being able to pull back
mhm,
once your son gets grown. Obviously, when you have to raise them on your own, it creates that, and that kind of ties into why I entitled the show the way I did, by myself but not alone, because
mhm,
yeah, you may not have had that connection of the father being in there in the home with you, and you having to do it by yourself, but then you weren't by yourself because you had your son. And I think it's just a natural thing for that mother and son to bond. I experienced it personally, so I know what that's like. And then, of
mhm,
course, when you transition into adulthood and you're wanting to kind of, show your mom that, hey, you poured into me the way you needed to, and I'm trying to work this thing out. And like you said, we still make our mistakes, but then you want to
yeah,
jump in without feeling like you're crossing the line, but at the same time, you don't want to see him, fall on his face either. So that is a
right.
hard
Right.
challenge.
Oh,
And then don't throw in the dynamic of him finding a young lady that now is competing for interest in time. So that adds a
that's a
whole
whole new
nother
show.
layer.
That's a new show,
That's a whole new show. You're right.
Whole new
That's
segment.
a whole new segment. That's absolutely correct. So so thank you again. Thank you for sharing
Yes.
that.
Oh yeah.
Victoria, same question. Challenging time. Didn't know how you were going to work that thing out, but you managed. Obviously, you made it through because you're here to tell it. But nevertheless, it was back then. You just didn't know. What was that journey like for you, and how did you work through that?
Well, just a couple of journeys. I mean, like, childhood was great. High school, went off to college, went off to Texas A&M University and College Station. And I tell kids all the time, my students, that those are going to be some of the best years of your life is college. So had a great college experience. Probably met the love of my life at College Station. We were together 8 years. The challenge was letting that go. Um, he was an alcoholic, and his pretty much everybody in his family were alcoholics. And he had a good heart. He was a good person. But I remember asking him just tell me that you won't drink and drive. And he wouldn't do it. In hindsight, I'm like, that was a blessing, because that helped me to let that go. I was like, I can't go on with this. Um, and that was one of the challenges, because I was like, I mean, I loved him with my whole being. Um, and I felt like he loved me too, but he couldn't fight that demon. And so that was one of the challenges. And then my family got mad at me because they loved him too, so dealing with the fact that I had lost what I felt like was a part of my heart, and then dealing with my family saying, well, why don't you just take him back? But I'm looking down the, excuse me, down the road and thinking, I cannot risk you driving with our children. you know, while you're intoxicated. And I just really wanted him to get better. Um, Fast forward, he got married. I got over that, and then met who I thought would be my husband for life. He It was a whirlwind romance. Met him. He had me in church 3 times a week. We met in October of '98. Got married in October of '99. I got pregnant on my honeymoon. Um, and it just seemed like all was just, had this huge surprise engagement party, all the things. And he left. Just, we had an argument and he just left while I was pregnant. And I was like, but God, I did it. I did all the things, I did the things right. We got married and then had the baby and, all these things. And just, he just left. What I have found out, in the years since is that that's his MO. That's what he does. Um, but he left me with this amazing, beautiful son. So then I'm like, okay, So within a year, I started a new job. I changed schools. I got engaged. I got married. Um, I got separated, and I had a son, all within about 18 months. So like five of the biggest life stressors ever. So I'm like, I don't even know. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like I'm going to work and I'm working, but I have this child to raise and my heart is broken, all these things. And so I do remember laying in my closet one night and just on my face and saying, God, help me. I don't know what to do. Um, because I did not know what to do. It was just so much emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't remember where the turn came, but I just know that he brought me out of it. And I tell my son all the time, he has provided, he has protected, um, through everything. So and still part of the challenge that I have is that, was raising him alone without his father being involved in his life. Of course, he's had mentors and, I have brothers, but they're not the best examples. I love them dearly, but they're just not the best examples. Um, but he's had mentors and men in his life that have stepped in, stood in the gap for him. But that was the challenge, was
Mm-hmm.
um, going through all of that emotional turmoil within that short period of time, and then allowing God to just, he had to pull me out of it because I didn't know how I would get out.
Wow. And again, thank you first and foremost for sharing your transparency in that. But like you said, God is with you. He
Yes.
allowed you to, he made ways when it may not have felt like it was going to be a way, whether it was to care for your son or just to care for you, to keep you
Hmm.
in your right mind and dealing with it all. And in both of your cases, you have, I've had an opportunity to meet both of your sons, and clearly your job well done is an understatement.
Thank you.
You've stayed the
Thank
course, and you've raised men, black men, in an environment where the odds are against them, where the stats
Mm-hmm.
say otherwise. Whether it's academic success, or whether it's in your case, like with your son Victoria, success on the baseball field, in
Mm-hmm.
sports, and just doing some just wonderful and great things. Great young men, very respectful, clearly gentlemen, of a high class and a high standard, and that much of that is attributed to you, as well as, like I said, God placing men in the gap along the way, different mentors, or just men who just treated them, even though they weren't their biological sons, treated them like a son, to give them an encouraging word here or there, or a pat on the back, or to kind of keep their spirits up and let them know that there is hope, that they can be something special in life, and be world changers. So that's awesome testimony from both of you. So with that said, when you think about not only the stories that you share, but just adversity in general, how do you go through? What is your kind of your go through process of healing, of dealing whenever an adversity moment comes into play? Like, walk us through, like, what do you do? Okay, here's a new thing on the table I got to deal with. What has worked for you to kind of get through that moment, whether it's big or little, without you getting stuck, without you getting consumed by that moment. So I'll start with you, Tamla. What is that? What does that look like for you?
All right. So first, after I say, "Oh Lord, what is this going on?" What so then, but after that, my number one thing is prayer and fasting, and like within the last maybe 5 6 years, I understood that certain things are necessary, even in adversity, that needs to happen. And that's because so that it brings you closer, not only closer to God, but closer to your destiny or the purpose and plan that He has for you. So during my prayer and fasting and just really going deep into the Word of God, um, that has truly helped me. And I'm just going to give you one example. So about 5 years ago, I was laid off from my job, and I think Victoria heard the story already. But I was laid off from my job, and I was devastated. I couldn't believe they laid me off my job. I got the package, and you get unemployment, but it's just not the same because you beat up on yourself. What did I do? And then you realize, oh, I was just another line on a spreadsheet. So in that time, I was out of work for 10 months and I could not get a job. I have a bachelor's and I have two masters and I have certifications. The only job I was able to get was at Macy's during the holiday season, making $9 an hour. So I went from
Mm.
six figures to $9 an hour. And I'm like, Lord, I know this is not where I'm supposed to be. And he was like, no, it's not. But you are going to give glory to me for that bachelor's, those two masters, your compensation. You need to give me that glory and say that it came from me because my thing was, oh, I got the skills to pay the bills. That was I used to say that all the time. And Lord, like, oh, you got me to pay the bills. And so He had to humble me in that instance where I had to realize where my blessings flow. So as I start to think back, when I was at that particular company, I met a lady who told me about a program at Dallas Theological Seminary, and how it was a free program. I had to go through, get letters from the pastor, and all of this, writing an essay, doing a lot of things. But if I get accepted, I get to go through this lay institute for free, even books included. So had I not been there to meet her to get me, then I wouldn't have a certificate. I now have a certificate in Christian education from the DT was Open Bible Academy through DTS, but I wouldn't. None of that would have happened. So it was necessary because God said, "Okay, you did what you were supposed to do here. Now I'm taking you out, and so you don't need to be that no more." And when I say once I realized that and just start studying the Word of God, understanding that all blessings flow through Him. It's not me at all. It's nothing that I've done. So once I realized that, and when I can truly say that the blessings have flowed since that period, and I do not look back. And the only way I look back is I remember how He blessed me with meeting this young lady, so that I can go to the school, so that I can learn more about Him, and then be able to preach that good news to somebody else. So that's how I do. I remember, I pray, I fast, I read the Word of God. And sometimes I don't know what I'm gonna read sometimes, and it's just like I'll Google a topic that I'm feeling. I'm feeling heartbroken. I'm feeling, whatever the case is. And I say, what scriptures is that? And then I start to meditate on those scriptures. And then I realize that it's necessary because I'm going to bless somebody. Sometimes God allow you to go through all of this because when you get blessings, the blessings is you give your blessings away. You got to give them away. You got to share them, and your testimony is your sermon. So that's what you have to. So that's why you go through certain things so that you could share with somebody and glorify God. So I'm sorry, I get on the soapbox. So
Oh
let me
no,
stop.
Oh
no.
no, no, no,
Let me
no
stop right
apologies warranted. This is I told you from the beginning you were going to get to say what's on your heart to say. Whether the enemy want us to say it or not. So you're gonna get to say what you wanted to say. So that's powerful stuff. And
there.
like you said, I like when you talk about that, when we talk about the subject of the healing process and how I get through, everything that you're talking about is not a I wait until I'm in the situation to happen. Like you're doing this already, and then there's some extra layers that you add to it when you're in the midst of the adversity.
Yes.
But then you're also reflecting back on, the difficult times, and instead of throwing the pity party, if you will, you're
Right.
clinging to that and saying, no, yeah, I went through that, but then God has something in that for me, so that I was
Mm-hmm.
able to do this down the road that I didn't know about back then, but I know
Right.
about it now. So it's all full circle. It's all intertwined together, and it's important to in that processing of challenging and difficult times. Because as I tell people all the time, it's not a matter of if, but when. We're going to go
Right.
through our storms. We
Right.
don't know when they're going to come. We don't know what level of intensity that they're going to come at. But there is a way to prepare for that, and this is part
Yeah.
of that preparation process. And as you said, even though you were out 10 months, God still kept you. He kept,
He did.
and
He
yeah, it is
did.
hard to swallow six figures to $9 an hour. That's a hard
Mm-hmm.
And
that's a
Mm-hmm.
hard
part time.
sell.
And part
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
And part time.
you know. But
I
we go
say,
through our
Lord,
seasons, of life,
yes.
and your season with that company was it was coming to its end, and it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that you did anything wrong. It wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
he decided, okay, your work here is done, and I'm preparing you. Well, you already were being prepared, and now you're
Yeah.
transitioning into
Yes.
what's next.
Yeah,
And
because I
so,
had started. I'm sorry, not that tantrum. I
you're
had
fine.
started like lunchtime prayer sessions with some of the employees because I didn't want to do it on the company's time because I didn't want anything. And so,
Mm-hmm.
because I just felt I said I need some anointing in this place because I can feel the spirits. I'm like these spirits are not right in this place. And so I would ask people, you want to come in, and it started off as maybe two of us, and then we used to have a whole conference room, and we praying, and we go around the table. What do you need to be praying for? Then I had this guy who he was just so awesome in his leadership and in the Word of God that we started having Bible study right there in the conference room, and then all of a sudden this happened. Then I get laid off, and I'm like, why?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so glad now that I know that even now when I go through things, I'm like, okay, Lord, what you want me to learn? That's the first question I ask. Not that I'm mad, because I know I got to go through something. What do you want me to learn, and who do you want me to tell this to? So that's my whole thing, so that I won't get so bogged down into the adversity that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. And
You know,
again, what you started within the confines of the workplace, as we all know, workplaces are very sensitive about you talking about certain things. So you utilize what you could utilize within that space, but
hmm
then you tapped out on that. So God
yeah,
said, okay, you're doing what I want you to do, but now you got to expand that, and you won't be able to expand it here. So instead of stopping what I want you to do, we're going to remove you from this situation so you can keep that momentum going, and expand it even
Right.
further, versus being having it shut down by a company who doesn't want to hear
yeah,
all this God talk, all this,
right.
all this
Uh-huh.
praise talk, or what have you. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Victoria, same question for you. What is your healing journey look like? How do you handle the adversities of life? What is your routine that you like to go through that helps you navigate those troubled waters, if you will?
So prayer, and just I think for me, it's what I realize is that I just have learned to just put my faith in God,
Mhm.
no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a similar situation. I was working for the community college, and applied for a job, and I had moved my all of my stuff from one. I was on a grant with the college, moved all my stuff to this, to the office where I felt like I was going because I had applied for this job. I knew I was going to get it and didn't get it. And I was like, what? So I'm unemployed. I have a house note. I have a mortgage at the time and a car note. And I'm thinking, what? Um, and just not even understanding. I was like, God, what are we doing? And I'm thinking, I have a master's, I have a bachelor's degree, I have a master's degree. But during that time, I was able to then go back. I started a teacher certification program. Now, mind you, I never wanted to teach. I knew I wanted to be a counselor, but I never wanted to teach. But when I was going off to college, I told my mom I'm going to get a degree in education, and she was like, "You not? I'm not sending you to college. Teachers don't make no money. You're gonna get a business degree." So, being the obedient child, I got a business degree. stayed out for a year, and went right back and got my master's in counseling. So this was after that. And during that time, I started a teacher certification program, which then led to me being able to get my school counselor certification. And during that time, I was just like, God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And what I realized was I kept fighting education. I had my master's in counseling, but I was like, I don't really, I knew I was going to be a counselor. I don't know if I was going to do, therapy or what. He kept pulling me back and putting me in positions where I was
Mm,
working with kids,
mm.
working with children. And I was like, I ain't trying to work these people bad kids, you know, because I didn't have kids at the time. I didn't have my own bad child at the time, but he kept putting me in those positions. And when I stopped fighting, my life just started
Mm.
literally falling into place. And that's when I realized just trust God.
Yes, yes.
Just stop fighting. Stop trying to do it your way.
Right.
Trust God. When I was unemployed. I went on an interview for a job at the high school that I went to literally a mile up the street. Y'all, I had the worst sinus infection cold. I was like, I couldn't breathe. I'm sitting in that interview like, oh, I'm sitting up here thinking, if I could just leave and go blow my nose. I talked to this man for an hour, literally. As soon as I walked out, I went and blew my nose because I couldn't breathe. Went home. He called and offered me the job. Not that day, but he called and offered me the job. And I started that job the week before my unemployment ended.
Mm.
And that job then led to me um, going into getting my certification to teach and then to become a counselor. So I just pray. I pray about everything I teach my son. Just pray. I
Yeah.
don't know. He asks me, Mom, what should I do? And I'm like, have you prayed about it?
Hmm.
Have you prayed about it? And I give my tithe to God because I'm like, it's not mine. And I have to know that He's got me no matter what. I'm going to give this to Him because He's going to give it back to me however He sees fit. When I moved out here to Wylie, I was able to rent my house in Plano, which literally covered my mortgage out here. Um, and I think the people that sold me the house thought I wasn't going to keep it. Here 20 years later, and it's almost paid off. Um, it, I'm like, I think people doubted that was going to be. My mom was like, "Girl, I thought I was going to have to move in with you and help you pay for that house." But I'm like, "We good." He
Mm.
has provided. He has, I give it all to God. And that's
Yeah.
that's my routine is that I'm not as well versed in scripture. That's something I want to work on. That's still a goal. Um, I just trust God. And I mean, it sounds very simplistic. Um, but from what he has brought me through,
Hmm.
I see that every circumstance, every situation, he's leading me to where he wants me to be.
Yeah.
I've been at my school as a counselor for 21, I'm going into my 21st year this year. And it's an amazing journey. I tell people it's a calling. I know that I have helped children. I know that knowing that if I can just get them on a college campus, just allow them to see what that's going to be like. Because so many kids, even today, don't think about college. Even today, I'm like, and today a college degree is like the high school diploma. And so just trusting God and knowing that He's going to provide and protect us every step of the way.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. And again, it's important. I know you said earlier it seems like a simplistic thing to say, but it really is that simple. It can be
Hmm.
hard to do, but it is really that simple. Trust God.
Hmm.
Be still. Quit trying to, like I say all the time, quit trying to pick up weights and burdens that were never yours to lift. That was for him to pick
Yeah.
that up. Stop,
Hmm.
stop.
Right.
Let him be God all by himself, and you be obedient in doing what he's asking you, you directing you to do. And like you said, when
Hmm.
we don't, he's patient. He lets us, toil around with whatever we think we're going to do, but he's
Mm-hmm.
always working to get you back on over there.
Yes.
I'm not going to make you, but I'm going to strongly encourage you. And
Hmm.
if it means humbling you, if it means closing you down, closing the walls in on you a little bit for you
Mm-hmm.
to get to the point of
Yes.
understanding, then that's what he does, but it's
Right.
all in love. It's not to hurt. It's not to harm. It's just hey, I'm trying to lead you to this blessing that I've already set up for
Right.
you.
Right. It's there.
It's
It's already
there.
there.
I know you don't
Exactly.
understand it all. I know it may not make sense to you,
Yes.
but you got to
Mhm.
go back to who's running the show. If it's
Right.
me and my record is perfect, then what you worried about? I mean,
Right.
it'd be different if you were trusting somebody whose record you couldn't verify or was a little shaky.
Yes.
But you
Mm-hmm.
can
Right. Right.
mine is
Right.
it's flawless, it's perfect, it's spotless. So
Absolutely.
sometimes we just have to kind of go through that track. So with that said, I want you to take a moment to think back. Um, you know, when you reflect back on everything that you've been through in life, the good, the bad, everything in between. If you had a chance to speak to the younger versions of yourselves, the versions who again didn't understand all the things that that you understand now. I know it's my way. I know I'm gonna do it this way. I got it all figured out, all under control. What would be those words, those little nuggets of wisdom that you would drop to that younger version of you? And I'll start with you, Tamla. What would you tell the younger Tamla to get her mind right, to get her focus right, so she would be more equipped and prepared to handle what lies ahead, and to be the best that she can be? What would you share with
Right.
her?
Well, one thing I would share is you don't know everything. You don't know everything. So just wait, wait, wait. And then, we didn't get into this part of just some challenges. I used to be a fighter where I would fight, but I wouldn't start fights. I was like, when people would be bullied, I would be the one that fight the bully. And so I would tell myself, the younger me, that you don't have to do that. You fight with the word. That's what you do. You fight with the word of God. You pray about that situation. You don't have to, be everybody's protector, because I just felt like that. And then that was one of those childhood things, going into this school, underprivileged school, and I would see people, make fun of people. And like, I came from a house of love. We as a family, we just loved on each other. That's what we did. Even, my parents are together. It was nothing for us to just have family moments and love on each other. So to see something different, that was something I wasn't used to. And my first defense was to fight. Like, and that wasn't always the best thing to do, because my principal, he would say, you smart and you excel. He said, but I just have to get you from stop jumping into other folks' stuff. Ain't none of your business. So, um, so I would tell myself to go sit down somewhere and just, let it go, because I feel I'm very passionate about people, and I love people. Um, and as kids, I used to always say that they, you know, they didn't make this circumstance for them. It's not their fault. And I hated for people to tease other people, because we're kids. That was my logic. We're kids. It ain't their fault that they look like this or dress like this. Why would you make fun of them? And I would be so serious with that. So that would be one of that's what I would tell myself, to kind of back up. Some
Hmm.
you can't say the world, Tam. You maybe say one, but and don't do it with your fist. Do it with the word of God.
Right. And that's understandable. I mean, when you're a person who has a
Yeah.
big heart and you care for people, it's natural to save and rescue and come
Hmm.
alongside. And but again, there has to be boundaries. And the
Yeah.
reality is also everybody doesn't want to be saved. And some people will let you come in, and next thing you know, you'll be embracing the problem like it's your problem. And they'll be sitting back like, okay, well, thank you for taking that on from me. I'm like, well, no, this is still your problem. I need to
Right.
figure out a way
Mm-hmm.
how can I come
Right.
alongside you to offer some help and some guidance in how to
Nice.
perhaps address the problem without taking on the problem as if it's your
Yeah.
own. Because
Yeah.
like you said, you can't save everybody, you can't rescue anybody, because you'll wear yourself out. And I've been
Hmm.
guilty of that, that very same thing. So it's good that you recognize that you got to lay hands on people in a different way than what you used to do. You got to lay hands on them differently.
Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
that's funny. Yeah.
So Victoria, same thing for you. What would you tell the younger Victoria? What words of wisdom would you give her to better navigate the adversities and challenges of life?
Well, so I've always been, pleasantly plump. I was a chunky child. And actually, my mom says that my grandma put, 20 pounds on me when I went down there to live with her for that year. And so coming back, um, just grow into who you are,
Mm,
allow yourself to just grow into who you are. Um, and as Tamla mentioned, having always been smart, I loved to read. But you get into middle school, and I think that's why God put me in middle school. You get into middle school, and everybody got little boyfriends, and everybody trying to do all the little stuff. And I was always just around everybody because we were all so close. But I think I developed kind of early, and what I didn't realize then that I realize now is that the eighth grade boys weren't necessarily looking at me. It was the 12th grade boys. Well, my daddy would have caught a case had I been hanging out with some 12th grade boys. And so just to realize, just to grow into who you are, I remember thinking, you know, I wasn't in any classes with my friends because I was always in advanced classes. I didn't like that. But of course, I didn't understand it. And so now I'm dealing with people. We had a mom come in saying she wanted to take her daughter out of the gifted class because she wasn't with her friends. And I'm like, sweetie, that's going to pass. I was like, Mom, you can't do that. That's who she is. Allow her to be who she is because she doesn't understand or know what drama is going on in the regular classes. She'll be okay.
mm-hmm.
And so I would just tell myself to just grow, allow, to appreciate where I am and that it's going to pass. This too shall pass.
Mm,
Because fast forward to, senior year, junior year, I'm the junior class president. Senior year, I get a scholarship to A&M. I remember telling my mom, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to go to college. I mean, I don't play sports because my brother went on a football scholarship. And she was like, they're academic scholarships. And so I think that's what is I'm so passionate about is exposing children. I mean, my parents were right there. My dad had gone to college. He came home, but he had gone. My dad was valedictorian of his class. He went down to college, but because he was spoiled. I mean, he's my grandmother's only child, so that helped me kind of with Caleb. I didn't want him to do that, to go off and be like, no, I want to be home. And so I started instilling in him college from like 3. Where are you going? You know. Uh, and so that was always the process. But I would tell my younger self um, to trust to just enjoy each stage and not just be so concerned about what people think or what everybody else is doing, because this too shall pass.
mm-hmm.
That's awesome, and why we do the podcast. So you just blessed me because something you said. I think about you. You had an opportunity to meet my daughter, and she's 15 now, and she's one of those kids who's academically thrived all her life, and so she's in a similar situation where you're in these advanced classes and but you don't have friends, and then you blend that in with being an only child on top of that. You clearly are different in a good way, but sometimes it can feel like it isolates you or makes you feel lonely, like who do I connect with? Because even if you do have other friends that are in your age bracket, because you're on two different levels, not so much that you think you're better than them, but to a degree you are in the sense of your maturity levels and things of that nature. So you just
Yes.
don't have the same interests, the same likes. The things that would entertain them would bore you in a shorter period of time. And so it
Mm-hmm.
makes it challenging for her. to have to have friends that she can connect with, and sometimes she's had emotional breakdowns about that. Feeling like I don't have any friends. I don't have anybody that I can hang out with and connect with. So you saying that is very powerful, and I might even have her talk to you a little bit because of course her just because you identify with what that's like, because it can be challenging, and anybody who's listening to this, they may have a child who's going through a similar type of thing. So I hope that they draw from what you said and just understand that in time, this will. You'll have that moment when you're going to connect with like-minded folks who are thinking the same things that you are, on the same tracks and paths.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So don't get caught up in what's happening now. Yeah, I understand. It can get lonely. It can get where you feel like you're by yourself, especially like I said in this case, when you're the only child, and so then you rely heavily on your parents to be that,
Mm-hmm.
that support. And then, but if we're working or if we're just tired or whatever, then that's like, now what do I do? Because it's not like you have the days of where kids used to run around outside and play like they used to. They don't do that kind of thing anymore.
Right.
So that's it's unfortunate, but that's just the reality of what our world is today, because it's just not even safe anymore to do it,
Right.
Right.
like it used to be. So you used to have to fight to get us in the house back in the day. Now,
Right. But when
you
them
know,
street lights came on,
right, the street lights, so
right.
thank you so much for sharing that, because somebody's going. I know I was just blessed in that moment, and I'm sure somebody else listening will be blessed in that. So
I just
before
want to
we,
interject
I'm
one
sorry.
more
Go ahead.
thing. Just one more thing. It just came to me. My 10th grade year, um, I was a library aide.
Hmm.
And so that was one of the best years I had. And I think that's when I truly started to just come into my own. Um, I ran for office. That was my first time. And I was vice president or something. And I was a library aide. And I would just remember going to my classes, um, going to the library. I've always been an avid reader. I've always loved to read, and having that opportunity. And I started to just really kind of focus more on me. And I think that kids are so, especially now, always focusing on somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Always looking at the people on the Instagram and the Snapchat and all the things. I started to just to invest time in me. Didn't really understand that. Didn't know what I was really doing. But I realized in thinking back, that's what I started to do. And from that point on, I just started to make myself more of a priority, which is hard as a child because you don't really know I didn't realize what I was doing then, but I really started to just focus in on, I was like, I like to read. I'm gonna be a library aide. I don't want to be in art. I want to do this. And so really, um, I appreciate the fact that I had the opportunity to do some of the things, run for office, to try some things, explore some things then, so that by the time I got to college and I'm with those people who are like minded, I have friends. We have a 40-year friendship. Those are the people that I met in college.
Hmm.
Those are the friendships that I still have. I still have some friendships from elementary and high school, one or two. But the people that I'm looking at, that these kids are looking at, and I tell them today, I'm like, baby, you're not gonna remember half of these names. You trying to fight over Roro. Y'all ain't gonna even know Roro in 20 years.
Right.
That's true.
And so, that's part of what I would tell my younger self. Again, just try to, prioritize and focus on yourself and not be worried about all these other people and what they're doing.
That is so true. I know. I
Mm-hmm.
know for myself, my coming out, if you will, was college. I
Hmm.
literally remember my mom dropping me off, and when she left, and those who came with her, I'm walking around on campus, and I literally was just talking to myself, and I said, made a promise. I said, from now on, if there's something that you're interested in, I don't care if it's a little bit, whatever, you're not going to act all scared and shy about it. You're just going to try. You're just going to go all in. And it was life changing.
Hmm.
You all gotten to know me, and you see how I speak or whatever, but that's not, that wasn't how I always was. And I still have a shy element to me, believe it or not. It's just that, but that confidence that you build in yourself, and realizing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that you can do a whole lot of stuff if you just don't stand in your own way. Give yourself a chance to
Exactly.
just
Yes.
explore and
Yes.
experiment things.
Exactly.
And before I knew it, I was on this committee and that group and running this and involved in that, in addition
Yes.
to school and all this
Hmm.
kind of stuff. And it's been a snowball effect ever since. I haven't looked back. So everybody has that
Mhm.
timing. And as I share with you about my daughter, I tried to share that same thing. What you're gonna there's gonna be that breakthrough moment. You just
Hmm.
kind of have
Mhm.
to ride it out because
Yeah.
I wasn't this super popular kid growing up. People liked me, people knew me, but that didn't necessarily by default mean that you were in the what they
The
call it,
cool group.
the cool group, the popular group,
Yeah.
and I was one of those people that was in the middle. It was like I wasn't cool enough to be cool, but I wasn't nerdy enough to be a nerd. So it was like it was right on the fence. So you had
Right
friends on
there.
both sides, but you
Right.
didn't quite know where you fit in. It was just kind of one day I'm hanging out with Urkel, one day next day I'm dating a cheerleader. So
Right.
you just don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a toss up. You don't know how it's gonna play out.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well, this has been a pleasure. But before I let you go, before in our final segment of the show, this is an opportunity. I want to celebrate you two ladies. So if there's anything that you want to talk about that you have going on, some exciting news, some new adventures, anything of that nature that you'd like to share, please do so. So we can, like I said, we can affirm you and love on you a little bit, and all that good stuff. So Tamala, I'll start with you. Anything exciting coming up or going on right now that you are involved with?
Um, well, I'm just still trying to push my business, Lady T Home Designs and Gifts, and I just recently did a show in Houston, which was the Black Texas Expo, and I was able to really push. I have a lot of books, so as Victoria stated, being that avid reader and like to read, I have a lot of Christian books, a lot of encouraging books and planners and inspiring reads and that sort of thing. So I'm really pushing that. I'm really pushing that. And then just one other quick plug, depending on when this is going to be played. But next Friday and Saturday at our church, we will be simulcasting the Desperate for Jesus Women's Conference, and we will have vendors there as well with that, uh, showcasing their products, but also coming to just see that simulcast and be a part of that Desperate for Jesus Women's Conference. So.
All right. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. How about you, Victoria? Anything exciting you got in the works that you've been looking at, planning to do, in the middle of right now? What you got going on?
Nothing. No. Nothing.
Now,
Um. Ooh, I'm gonna say it out loud. I'm thinking about retiring,
all right.
and
Mm.
yeah, yeah. Um, I'm thinking about retiring. I need to finish get my LPC done, and that's been Lord, that's been a 20-year journey that I just I don't know. I'm like, and I did pray for me because I'm like, what is stopping me? I just need to take all the. I need to 20 years ago, before I got married, before I had Caleb, I had finished all my hours. All I had to do was take the test. Had Caleb, I'm like, ain't nobody got time for that. So I'm struggling, working and taking care of it, taking my son. So now they've changed it. Now you have to take the test and then get the hours. Well, I'm a counselor. I can get the hours. It's taking the test. I just have to take the test. And so y'all pray for me because I need to, I don't know what that hurdle is. Um, and I'm like, Lord, okay, I need you to show me. Tell me what you need me to do. Is this not where you want me to be? Are you trying to tell me I have to stay in the schools? I don't really know. But I'm thinking about it. It's Caleb, just finished his undergraduate degree. He's working on his master's. And so I'm feeling like this could be the time. And I want to spend time with my mom. She always talking about, I ain't gonna be here forever. I'm like, what? What you mean? Um, so I just want to, enjoy her, and I can, always get another job, I'm sure. But so that's kind of what I'm thinking. This could be my last year as a middle school counselor, which not to say I wouldn't go to, college or do something else, but so that's a possibility. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, again, that's something to celebrate. I mean, you've obviously put in the work, a lot of years of pouring into the lives of children. So, retirement is definitely something to celebrate and well deserved. And just the fact that you're not looking at retirement as being a moment of just I'm retiring to just sit still and just wait till everything turns off. You're actually thinking about, like I said, the LPC and just spending time with mom and doing some other things. So I mean, because I think that's a whole new approach that we learned just recently in the class that we did. Tamla, you were in the class we did at church, and we
Mhm.
talked about that. Like retirement shouldn't be the ending of the
Mm-mm.
the story. It should just be a
Mm-hmm.
transition into something new. It's just a new
Mm-hmm.
adventure of life. So,
Right.
well deserved. And again, as women of God, you know how to listen to him and follow his lead. And if he's leading you towards transitioning from where you're at now, saying, "Hey, job well done on here, but here's your next phase of stuff to do," then
Mhm.
then
Exactly.
you roll with that. Because like I said, son's grown, doing his thing. It's just you. House almost paid for. Life is moving along, so you kind of like you got some time, you got some
Yeah.
room, some space to do some stuff, and and
Yeah.
and no better time to try to do that while everything is still working and moving
Right.
parts are all in place versus
Yeah.
Right.
to where you
That's so
can't
true.
move and can't
Right.
can't function, so why not. So absolutely. So for both of you, congrats, best of wishes to that, prayers up on all of those things that have already been revealed and are to be revealed to you, because God's not done with either one of you. I'm pretty confident of that, and the same will be the case for me. So with that said, that brings our podcast to a close. It has been a pleasure having you ladies with me today. It has definitely been a treat. I already thought you were, phenomenal ladies, and now you just added another layer to it, just sharing a little bit more about you to love on you for. So thank you so much for being a part of this. And for those who are listening to the podcast, if you like what you've heard today, please subscribe. Of course, please like, please share, please comment on the podcast. We'd love for you to do that. And, because this is an opportunity to share with others, empowering and encouraging messages that could be a blessing to someone. This is what it's all about. So here at the Blessings in the Street podcast, always remember that this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am Joseph B. Roberts, your host, and until next time, be blessed, take care of yourselves, and just continue to tune in because we got more exciting stories to share about journeys of life and overcoming adversity. Take care, everybody.